a nice rainy day in November. My friend Maury's here. We've been buddies for longer than we cared to admit, when our hair was thicker and our waists were thinner. Anyway, Maury said he wanted to come out here, so I figured I'd pull out something interesting for you to see. This is a post-1860, pre-1890, 2.5, 17 Martin. What was wrong with this is we went to set the neck and we couldn't get the neck set to hold, and here we discovered that this ice cream cone heel had failed. So we actually started taking this apart. I had called my friends out at Martin, and unfortunately I even called Milt Hess out of retirement, and when asked about this joint they said we never saw one that was taken apart on purpose. So I started taking it apart, and we're actually going to take it apart even further here while Maury's here.
Oh, wow.
This is a very interesting joint in that we talk about CNC, but look at the handwork. This miter joint, and this is the key that was driving me nuts. There's actually, and I'm going to do this so that you can see, there's actually an angle to this dovetail.
Oh, wow.
And this is what you would call a keyed tenon.
Keyed tenon.
This failed, which put all of the joint stress onto the miter of the ice cream cone heel. So I have to take this apart. I got to pull this out. And Martin was interested to find out what woods were used in this neck. This is people are complaining about 2- and 3-piece necks. Think about it. 1, 2, 3. Here you can see you see the V joint on there?
Oh, wow.
4, 5. So here's 5 pieces on this neck. And this is the way they were done in the old days.
Oh, wow.
And here is a bar fret. So people want to know what a bar fret looks like. You can see it's just a bar. And there's no neck reinforcement in here. So all of the neck reinforcement is controlled by these bar frets and how they push on the slot.
Is that when you hear the term compression?
That's exactly what that is. That's the compression fret. This one is, we don't know you can't identify the year to a date, but we do know because of, in here you're going to see, if you look close, you can see here it says C.F. Martin and Company, New York. And that, I believe, is post 1860. The unique thing about this is there's actually 5 back braces in here. And the other thing that I find interesting is the Martin neck block is upside down compared to what we see today. Can you see into the sound hole?
I can. Wow.
All right.
Huh.
And then the other neat thing about this is not a kerf line guitar. They actually have a solid lining in here. It appears that it might be laminated, two pieces bent together, because you can see a black glue line in here.
Laminated sides?
Laminated lining here.
Oh.
That lining piece. And it's not kerfing. Now I have a couple of these older guitars that have what they call the dentals, where each piece is individual.
Interesting.
And I cannot get over how much, there are 5 braces in here, all of them pretty hefty. But the guitar itself is so feather light, and it is Brazilian rosewood. So we have this to that point, and I got the water getting ready to boil. While this is warming up, I'll show you something else that might be of interest. I know Taurified tops are very popular right now, so that is a Taurified top. And this is a raw piece of red spruce, so you can see what's happening.
Oh,
and
wow.
I do know Martin is using what they call the VTS system, and they're actually controlling their Taurification a lot differently than what we tried in that one. Raining Bear Claw, if you remember that one at the unofficial Martin Guitar Forum years ago.
I do.
There's the sister piece for it. I'm actually thinking about making another one. This is a pre-war. I just got done kind of semi-restoring this one. This is from 1940. supposed to do is has to stain out the yin yang.
Wow. Look at that.
Yep. Ah, you should have seen the before pictures. You can see the big ugly pickguard that was on there.
Wow.
Yeah. And I actually have a collection of some of these. Probably that'd be interesting. The ugliest Martin pickguard I ever personally seen was actually on, I think, my third conversion.
It wasn't this thing?
No. And they had a pair of them.
Oh boy.
Could you imagine having that on your guitar?
I don't even like seeing it there.
No, that was pretty. That was.
Wow.
That's fugly. Yeah, that's not my favorite.
No.
So Martin did it sometime, and Martin actually put that kind of stuff on.
So you don't sell that part here at Blues Creek Guitars?
Well, I sell pick guards, but not like that. I mean, if you want one, I'm going to charge you enough that if I'm going to do it.
I don't want one.
Yeah, people they have questions about the different neck reinforcement through the years. Okay. Here's a classic example of what a T-bar would look like. So that is a T-bar, non-adjustable neck enforcement.
Okay.
Okay. Then they came out with, we all know about the ebony, and the ebony and the square tube were very similar. I want to see if I have a square tube. Yeah,
So what year were you talking about when you said T-bar?
The T-bar, okay, correct me when I started. It started just before the war period, back when they got into the steel strings, after the 20s.
Okay.
Then during World War II, because steel was at a premium, they went with ebony. And this here would have been a steel tube rod. So you can see the channel of the hole is square.
Okay.
The ebony was very similar to this. It was a little bit bigger. And I don't have an ebony neck, but I do have a square tube. So I'm going to make Maury move again. This one here is ebony. Right there is the ebony. This came from a 32 0018 that was in really, really bad shape. In fact, if you take a look at this neck, this is a case where I work with wood and I can fix it. It was on eBay, and I think I actually put this up on the forum. Look how nice he put that headstock back on. Kind of missed the angle.
Huh.
And you can see here he put a big filler piece in. So I had to make a new neck for that guitar. I don't even know what happened to that guitar. But that's an ebony neck reinforcement. Now this is not bar frets. These are T-bars, T-frets, and they would have done the same thing. Right behind Maury is a whole rack of different sized frets. And all of those frets, they're the similar size crown, but they all have a different tang, so that when I need to compression fret a neck, I have a variety of tang widths anywhere from 18.5 to 24.5 thousandths wide. So now you know a little bit about the different neck reinforcements. And trust me, without having the adjustable truss rod, setting these up is an art. You don't want to do it for your first time. I generally set these up, and Clarence Van Horn out at Martin taught me how to do this.
Oh.
And what I would do is I have very precise straight edges, and these are dead true, so I can put this on my neck, and as I come back past the 7th fret, I'm looking for like a 7 to 9 thousandths back bow in the neck. Then when I string the guitar up, I'll leave it strung up for probably a week or two, because there's barbs in the fret and they need to crush into the slots, and that can take a while.
Oh.
So a lot of times what happens where people have a problem with this is they don't give that barb the time to seat. So they'll do their compression fretting, think they're good, only to find out 2 weeks later the barbs seat and up they go.
Wow.
So I generally try to look for that 9 thousandths, and then I have some blocks here that I can put weight on there so I can get a feel for how the neck is actually reacting to the different stress. It can drive you crazy.
Now, when you talk about doing compression fitting, is that assuming you have a certain amount of tension on the strings, mediums versus lights, or is it once and done?
Well, yeah, you're kind of shooting for what they're going to do at the end result. So I'm trying to look for a neck relief, which is a straight line between number 1 and number 12,
Okay.
measured at 6, of between 4 to 9 thousandths between the bottom of the string and the top of the fret. I prefer to actually use my little straight edges on here.
And on a modern guitar, you can always play with that later with the adjustable truss rod, but you're speaking of
Yeah.
necks that don't have that.
Yeah, if you don't have an adjustable truss rod, you got one chance to get that neck set up, and if you don't get a good playing neck, you don't have a good guitar. It might sound good, just plays terrible, and if you don't like the way it plays. Now, you heard me talk about barbs. Let me show you what I'm referring to, because now you can see the barbs on the side of that fret wire.
Okay.
Okay, now this is called the tang. Most fret slots are usually cut about 23 thousandths wide. So as you start going in heavier with this fret tang, in this case, let's say you're going like 22, although that's not the same width as your fret slot, those barbs are pushing that slot apart, and that will put a back bow into the neck.
Wow.
So the more you got to do it, there's kind of like an art to it. I generally put a standard fret wire down around 15, which is right at the heel, 1 at 1, and then I generally put something that's like 22 at about 7. So I'm somewhere between the necks. So now I have 3 points that I can measure.
Huh.
So as I start pushing that neck back, it's not just getting it to go back up here, but you need a nice arc. You just don't want it to do this.
Sure.
You need a nice gentle arc, so that when the string pulls, you have a nice gentle arc coming back.
Now, does the fingerboard material influence what you're doing there?
Yeah, rosewood's a little different than ebony. Ebony's a little bit easier because it's harder. But the key to this is to get that in there and then just let the strings stay to pitch for at least a week or two to give everything a chance to settle in. And then if I have to pull a fret or two to adjust it a little bit more, I have a feel for how much it is going.
Okay.
And then that way I can figure, well, I can jury in maybe a 24 here and a 23 there.
So if you get it wrong the first time, you can actually pull the frets and change your mind about.
I can.
Yeah.
The one thing I really like to do whenever I do a refret is I do want to retrue the fingerboard. And I have this little toy. It's extruded aluminum. And it's machined. You can see I have my radius
okay,
on here.
Sure.
So that way I can do what they call replaning the fingerboard. So I can get my fingerboard, I can adjust it where it's as straight as can be using a weight, and actually what I'll do is I'll put these on the shoulders of the guitar so I get my fretboard flat, and where I adjust, well, anybody who hunts knows what this is, I can adjust my neck into here so I can get that nice and true.
Okay.
I think I have a video out on that called The Initial Setup, where I actually show how I plane out a fingerboard before I fret it.
And is that on the Blues Creek Guitars YouTube channel?
It should be. Now we got some fun going. I got water boiling, and we're not making hot dogs, and we ain't making, I know you're hungry, Maury, but you're getting no pasta today.
Is it that obvious?
So now what I'm doing, we're generating steam, and this is just a pressure cooker. Normally I use a heat blanket and heat things up. Here I want to be a little more controlling because I really don't want to damage anything here. This is basically a one shot and done. For my luthier friends, these are Pampered Chef icing knives. And if I can say one thing to you guys, get them.
Are you sure you're not going to feed me?
We'll feed you.
Shouldn't be icing around me.
So here we go. These come in so handy for different jobs. I just love them. I swear by them.
That's great.
In fact, I think for one Christmas I gave all my luthier buddies some of them. So what I'm doing is I'm just pushing steam into the joint here. And this will actually go pretty quick.
So that's not water, that's just steam.
It's steam. While it comes out, it will condense to water.
Okay.
The finish on here is shellac with lampblack.
Oh.
And just that little bit of hot on there, you can see I'm already getting in underneath there. You see what I'm doing here? I got my big stick in underneath the neck. All right, now I can take my little one underneath here, and what that's going to do, that's going to start pressing on the fretboard, and now I can just start working steam and heat down through. And you can see here, you can actually see the joint starting to open up. And that's what I needed to do. And the steam is actually reasonably dry when it comes out. It's the condensing of it when it hits the air that you see the water.
Oh.
Now if I have to, I may do this in conjunction with a heating blanket. But this seems to be working. So now that I get that crack opening up, you can see when I push that in there, you don't see the steam coming out. It's getting pushed into the joint more.
Sure.
So now you can see the...
It has a little bit of a mad scientist vibe here.
Oh yeah, I mean, the imagination is probably the most important tool you can have. I just want to get that piece out. If I can get that piece out, I will be one happy camper. You didn't get to see all of the fun. This went on for about the last 2 hours. I put a heating pad on, working with the steam, and I got my keyed tenon out. Although it came out in pieces, it's out. That will fit into this slot right here. So while this is still hot and the glue is still reasonably active, I'm going to take a clamp and I'm going to clamp this all up. And that will sit for a day or two till it all dries back out. There we go.
Oh, a day or two till it dries?
Oh yeah. And you can see this is all going back together really nice. What looks like a little bit of opening here is actually some shrinkage that happened over the time. So as this sets back up, I'll put this where it won't get bumped. And now I have the ability to put this on, make up that new tenon. As you can see, this is where this came in, like this.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so what happens, this fits in here and that mates the back of that neck. Then this tenon, because this is angled, will actually drive that whole joint together and lock it, much like a keystone in an arch. So that is an ice cream cone heel, circa 1860 to 1887 Martin. And like I said, it's kind of interesting. You can see that's not perfectly centered.
Right.
I guess it doesn't really matter. It's just a wonderful piece of, I mean, just...
You can't email that guy and ask him why he did that?
Well, I emailed Abraham Lincoln first, and him and Ben Franklin are going to get back to me. So you can just look at the accuracy.
That's neat.
That man, I mean, the crispness of that line. How crisp. That was, what, an hour in the life of a luthier.